close. Yeah, so we have rural internet. We the fastest we can get here at the church is like DSL, and so that makes live streaming really hard. But I didn't want to pre-record this and then just upload it. I wanted to actually just pop on live and do the whole live thing with y'all today to talk about this question. You know, we're calling this like, what's the most important question? And this is really a story of something that I have learned to be really helpful and really beneficial over the last year. So do me a favor. We got 6 folks on right now. So tell us you're watching. Let's hang out in the comments. Let's engage and have fun on there together. But I want to talk about this question. Someone sent me an Instagram or a Facebook message a few days ago, and they had seen I had talked about this question. What do we know to be true with my staff or with others? And they asked me how I was planning on using it. And I've been thinking about it the last couple of days, and I realized like the best way to do this, I think, is to jump on a live. And this is some of the stuff that I really, really enjoy doing, coming live like this. Nicholas, going from the cold part of hell of Canada, blessed to you all. Bro, it's like 75 degrees in Louisiana. You really not like it right now. Hey, Joe, good to have you on here, man. And so I thought about it for a couple of days and realized, let's come on to live. Let's do this. What I would love to hear from you is, do you like this sort of training, teaching thing? I don't want to do this necessarily on YouTube so much because that community over there is really not ministry specific, and it's also super, super Bible specific. So that's there. I also am looking at these type of kind of more tactical questions with the second season of Productive Pastor. And why I'm building out a workbook for it. That's what's taking so long, is getting this workbook done and under control. But I wanted to jump on because one of those questions that I use a lot that's going to be in the workbook and that I've used over the last couple of years as I've completely retrained myself and how I do things. It is one of these questions, what do you know to be true? Zach's watching. Zach, good to have you on, man. So what do we know to be true? And this is why I love this question. And this question can be abused if we want to fall into the subjective. And instead, when I use this question personally and when I use this question with groups, I want to live in the objective. Like, it's a time for us to come together, to ask this question, to write down things specifically about this, and for us to use this as a way to keep us out of anxiousness, to keep us out of just like a guessing mode, that sort of thing. It's also great to use with groups. I'm going to talk about it personally and how I use it personally in a little bit, but I'll tell you, my personal practice of this question was informed by how I use it with groups and with other people. And that's where I really kind of trained my own just personal level of resiliency that allowed me to start using this question in a more personal, private way. But what do we know to be true? And I find this to be really, really helpful to help us stay away from complaining, to help us understand discernment, to help us think of decisions in terms of a group and to make decisions as a group. And it also helps us to stay away just from the doom side of things because, you know, we all can tend to live a little bit in the doom world. And, you know, nobody likes to live in the doom world. So what do we know to be true? And I want to talk about this from a personal perspective first. But like I said, this was a development more and more personally when I started this as a group. But it's this, what do I know to be true? And I think that when we live in times of anxiousness with our decision making, as pastors, with ministry leaders, as we live in times of anxiousness with our relationships to other people, I think if you're somebody who struggles with like laying in bed at night thinking, what this person say, like that whole thing, where I found to be like, what do I know to be true, to be a really powerful question in my own personal journaling, discernment, my own personal worship, that sort of a thing, is I use it to ground it to me. It's like, what do I know to be true? Like, okay, these are the people I know, they are in my corner. Like, my leadership supports me. I'm blessed in that regard. And so if I think that's not the case, if I think that's not what's going on, I try to remind myself of that. What do I know to be true? I'll come in and write down, these are the things that God has done for me in my life, that I know He has done, these places I know He has been there. So in that way, asking myself that question, what do I know to be true? In a personal moment, it's a grounding. I go back and I think about in the Psalms, and the Psalms talks a lot about God has taken us out to a broad place. to a place of spaciousness. I actually preached about that this last weekend, and I talked about that and how what was so interesting was that term that we see used throughout Psalms comes back to in Genesis 22 when Abraham is in that fight for wells of water. And he comes to a place and says, hey, this is a place where we can flourish. And so I'll ask myself that question, what do I know to be true in terms of grounding myself in the prior activity of God? I'll also say, what do I know to be true about myself, where my own strengths? What are the things that I am good at? What are the things I know if I can defend and set boundaries around? The things I know if I can kind of give space and give time to. Those things that I know to be true, and so that it's an anchoring process that happens. So the second time is how do we make decisions about this, like with church? Like, what do we know to be true? And this is a time that our own staff and our leadership have used this before us, especially in the last couple of years, because every single thing has changed, and we have been operating. Anybody who works in ministry, especially at the average size church, that normal size church, we're trying to figure out right now, like, what are the big decisions that we have where we don't have the tools and resources to make decisions that we used to have in the past. I'd love for you to, like, in the comments, drop down, like, what are the things that you used to be able to depend on that you can't depend on anymore? And for me, no matter how bad the news is or how bad the reality or whatever that is, when I know I've got, like, objective data, I can relax because I can say, okay, this is how this happened. Now we have a way to get out of this. And so that's how I deal with those things. Like I said, I'd love just drop in the comments. What are the things that you like struggle with a decision making about objectivity and subjectivity? So we started using this exercise in my church. So what do we know to be true? And so we came at this problem because we were getting into doom loops as a staff, talking about things and just bemoaning. And this past summer, what it was understanding our lack of engagement and attendance, and the fact that we were starting to see a lot of people still being connected to the church, but Sunday morning was being this drastically different thing than we were used to Sunday morning being. I think go back 2 years ago, so many folks thought that church was going to come back like full force boogie when we came out of COVID. I don't know about you, but like at our church, we were planning to, in Louisiana, we had this 25% thing, and we were planning we're going to have like church like 9 times on a weekend to take advantage of our space, and we actually planned it out, I think, that first Sunday to have 4 services, maybe, or 3, and we only really needed 1, and like that's when we realized, oh, okay, this is going to be a different ball game. And so a year after that, we're still trying to figure these things out. So we started playing this game. Joe comes in here. People are no longer going to attend events in person, but want everything online. So, okay, so let's do this. So I've got, Joe has that comment right there. Let's play what do we know to be true with Joe's comment, okay? So let's think about this objectively. Like, people no longer are going to attend events in person. Okay, so we could come to that question as though we're going to complain about it. We could come to it with a little bit of negativity or a little bit of subjectivity. So like Joe said this, I know Joe well enough to use this example with stuff. So he says, but they want everything online. So this is where we play. What do we know to be true? Okay, what is our engagement like online? How do we see people use Bible studies or Sunday worship options or those sorts of things online? So we get to that point. Like what we know to be true is people will still attend events online, but aren't safe attending them in person. That's a thing that we know to be true. Like another example at our church, it started off with we would get in this doom loop of, oh, we know people just are they'd rather be with their kids, they'd rather be playing ball on Sunday, that sort of thing. We realized, no, let's flip that around. What we know to be true is people are prioritizing their kids' extracurricular activities. And so when we change that statement from, oh, people are going to be here because they want to go play baseball instead, to people are prioritizing their kids' extracurricular activities. And then we jumped into a model that I learned from, and I've got a bunch of books over here on it, but it's this whole industry called service design. Hey, Katie, how are you doing? And one of the things that service design does is it plays a game called the 5 Whys. So we get to our point, like with Joe, we'll say this, The stream is starting and stopping every few seconds. Yeah, Katie, it's absolutely on my end over here. I'm having a hotspot off my phone. But so we know, okay, why are people preferring to attend stuff online? And so why are we doing it? So they don't feel safe yet with COVID. Okay, there's nothing we can control about that. Why don't they feel safe in our church with these events? And pretty much what service design thinking, their idea of the 5 whys is, if we can ask why 5 times, and every time we get to an objective statement, we ask why again. A lot of times when we filter that down 5 ways, we end up having the ability to get to an actionable answer of something we can do. And so what we started doing is like, what do we know to be true? And in our church, the whole first time the conversation was about attendance and engagement. What we realized is, what do we know to be true? We know that people are spiritually open. Okay, great, that's solid. What do we know to be true? In our community, people still have a positive image of the church. And we do this exercise now, kind of constantly, like every 3 or 4 months, because the world has changed and shaped and shifted every 3 or 4 months. And so what do we know to be true, or what do I know to be true, has ended up being a really, really interesting conversation point among that decision. And the third way that I've been using this now is in my preaching. And that sounds kind of crazy, but what do I know to be true? And I've been dealing with it like in 2 different ways. The first way is I speak about what does biblical truth look like? What does theological truth look like? I found myself having a greater emphasis on that type of thing in my preaching instead of that. But the second thing that's really been more informative, it goes back to the way we use it the second time. So like when we play, what do we know to be true? And it's a game now. Like we'll say, let's play what do we know to be true, and we'll play it for 15 or 20 minutes, and we'll save the answers, that sort of thing. But I do it with the staff or with the leadership. But what I realize is I'm seeing the cultural shaping and shifting alongside of playing what do we know to be true. It's informed the things I'm preaching about. It's informed the way I'm preaching about things. And it's also ended up informing the, not just the topics I talk about, but the way I try to apply things to understand just like the general cultural hum of my community. And what I love about the exercise, what do we know to be true, is it helps you discern and understand your community and your context, but also in a very particular way, space and time. So like, what do we know to be true? And the most important thing, if you're going to do this exercise with a group or with yourself, is just this: stay objective, stay objective, stay objective. When you feel like you have a good one, like a good statement that you want to use, and I think I have like 10 of these, I think, from that we went through in that exercise. I'm going through. Okay, yeah. So like, here's a time my staff did this back in July. What do we know to be true? We started off with everyone is too busy. So you see it's too subjective. That's frustrating, that whole 9 yards. What we turned it into was people's schedules are overfilled. So if you can see the difference there between a negative, subjective understanding of what do we know to be true and the more positive side is people's schedules are overfilled. Second thing that we know to be true, our culture is casual. The third thing that we know to be true is everyone is looking for connection. A fourth thing that we knew to be true is that we are culturally divided in our community. There's a lot of tribalism. And we talked a lot about what that tribalism was. And what's so funny was it wasn't necessarily on like the big picture, like on the national scale, over race, politics, that kind of thing. We realize in our community here in the Deep South, part of the tribalism is, are you from here or are you not from here? And if you're from here, since I live in a newer community with a lot of transition, it's where did you go to high school at? And that kind of separates some stuff off interesting. Another thing we know to be true is we know that people are spiritually open. And it's like, okay, we can work with that. Another thing that we put in here is people like social options. That started off with people are going to make a decision based on the last minute of what sounds the most fun or good. That's the kind of negative space. And we realize no people like social options. The seventh thing that we listed this time when we played this is people are open to new experiences. That goes back to that variety that we knew that they wanted from social options, but also there a level of curiosity and out of the norm. Remember, this was July of 21, so this was 8 months ago, when people thought that it was the first version, it was the first wave of, hey, COVID's over, we can go out and do whatever we want to now. So there's a lot of fun questions that happen inside of that. Number 8, we started off with people are going to go play ball and turned into a high priority of kids' extracurriculars. And so there's tons of interesting conversation happening inside of that. Number 9 we had is there's deep roots in this town that related to the tribalism thing. And so you saw this. And then number 10, this is the last one from this session. It is possible to be a Christian without being attached to spiritual community. And I'll tell you what, you can see right there, those are fantastic statements that will help you kind of lead out and make decisions in the future. It's a pretty strong, pretty powerful thing. And you can see how that would inform preaching and would inform that sort of stuff. So I know that Katie said that her internet was kind of spotty. Does not surprise me. Probably need to do this from my house, not the office. I've got real internet at the house. But let me know what you think about this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to upload this to YouTube on an unlisted link so you can go in and watch it from there. That typically tends to be more higher quality, and I also do have a hard copy of this broadcast saved on my computer that should not be as dependent on internet streams and that sort of thing. Nicholas, being from the U.S. serving in Canada, this question has helped a lot in learning and understanding my surroundings, culture, adaptation. Never thought about playing this game in my preaching or teaching. Yeah, man, it's just a clarifying thing. And what I love is once we understand mental models like this, we can do them really, really quickly. Like that's what that workbook for Productive Pastor Season 1. There's going to be a lot of mental models inside of there. And so that's what's going on there. But if you dug this, there's going to be places that you can come back on and watch this, hopefully being better. I loved y'all coming in the comments. Let me know. I'm going to let the countdown run a little bit to save your comments because I would love to hear your thoughts on broadcasts like this, your thoughts on what some future topics might be, because I'm open to doing one of these live streams every other week or something like that. Hoping to have Season 2 out in about a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's all about finishing up that workbook. And I'm going to share more about that later on, but like I said, I'm going to just throw the countdown on to give the comment thread space just to hear your thoughts because that's what I love to do.